Two hotels in 1 week cancel two separate events on Shari'a. I'll be talking about it today on Faith and Freedom. I'm Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. Joining me is Matt Barber, the vice president of Liberty Counsel Action. Matt, there's a hotel we talked about yesterday, an event, in fact, I was speaking at November the 11th down in Nashville, the Hutton, Hutton Hotel, that canceled this event on Shari'a, and it's talking about threats that Shari'a law poses to our freedoms here in America. 2 weeks before the event, the hotel canceled. Also in Houston, Pam Geller, who is someone who is an expert on Islam, was scheduled to speak at a Hyatt in Houston called the Hyatt Place Houston Sugarland Hotel. And that hotel caved into Islam threats by canceling a speech by her. She runs the Atlas Shrugs website. Fortunately for Pamela and those attending out there in Houston, she was able to secure another alternative site, standing room only. At this stage, the event on November the 11th does not yet have an alternative site, and hopefully we will be able to have one. But both of those two events coming within 1 week. And there was a third event at a different time where a conference on Shari'a was also canceled. So we've got three different places where these events have been scheduled, sponsored by different organizations, but talking about the same thing, the threat of Shari'a to America and to our liberties. And then because of threats that these hotels have gotten, they've canceled the contracts and backed out. I've never seen that happen before in any other area.
Yeah, America, land of the free, home of the brave, First Amendment. Certainly these are hotels. They're not government agents or institutions, so the First Amendment per se doesn't apply, but certainly the concept of free speech is something that we hold near and dear in the United States. And there's an interesting two-pronged approach we see being pushed by both progressives in this country right now and radical Muslim groups, which are playing and oftentimes from the same playbook and seem to be partnering together. This two-pronged approach, one, is to silence any dissent or silence any criticism, public or private, criticism of radical Islam and particularly Sharia law, and while at the same time there is a push in academia and elsewhere to mainstream radical Islam, mainstream Sharia law. I wrote an article earlier this year. I had received an email from a group for a conference that was coming up at the time for the National Muslim Law Students Association at Penn Law. And the title of the conference was Constructive Roles for Islamic Law in Western Society. That's Sharia law. Yeah. Constructive roles for Sharia law, something that is anathema to the United States Constitutions, the Bill of Rights, and the freedoms therein. Yet this keynote speaker there, a woman a law professor with the National Association of Muslim Lawyers by the name of Asifa Karashi, she was pushing the notion that in some instances Sharia law special tribunals should be set aside for Muslims where Sharia law could be imposed right here in the United States. Yet again, public criticism to be held at hotels, Christian organizations pointing out and exposing the inconsistency between Sharia and our United States Constitution. They are being shut down, silenced through fear and intimidation.
Well, you look at what happened in Europe, and they actually have in some places in Europe allowed these different separate Muslim tribunals so that various kinds of domestic relations laws can be instituted in those particular areas. And so with regards to, for example, an honor killing, you can have under Sharia law, and particularly in Sharia countries, if a father kills his daughter, then for accepting Christ, because of leaving Islam or denouncing Islam or the Prophet Muhammad, or for whatever other reason, some promiscuity or other kinds of things, if that were to happen, the penalty in Sharia countries or Sharia-run laws is from the individual to the victim, not the state. So here in America, for example, if there is a crime, if a father were to kill his daughter,
it's a crime against the state.
It's a crime against the state, and so the state prosecutes, even though the father and the mother does not want the state to prosecute. In Sharia-run countries, though, if the if the spouse, the wife, the mother of that daughter, forgives and does not want to prosecute, then there is no prosecution. It's over and done with. So you can have honor killings within a family that absolutely have no recourse by the government, by the state not being able to get involved, because it's not a crime against the state. It's a crime against the individual.
Now, people hear this, Matt, and they'll say, no, that'll never happen in the United States. There's nobody who's taken seriously, nobody with any true credentials is pushing for these tribunals, pushing for Sharia law in the United States. I mentioned Asifa Karachi with the University of Wisconsin Law. Listen to what she said. These are her own words in a paper she wrote, No Altars, a survey of Islamic family law in the United States. We're talking about family law here. She wrote, quote, the attitude of the U.S. courts to the rise of these tribunals is yet unknown, but there is indication that some judges would welcome the existence of reliable arbiters of Islamic family law issues and may be even undertaking their own consultation from Muslim authorities in the interim. This is chilling, again, when you consider that public criticism is being shut down and mainstream hotels are capitulating to these threats by radical Muslims, by politically correct progressives who, for other reasons, want it shut down because it's not politically correct. It's chilling, again, when we see that second-pronged approach to mainstream radical Islam and Sharia law.
I've got in my one of my libraries a notebook right now that I just printed off a couple of weeks ago, and it's all the current case law that exists right now in America that address Sharia. And it is about 5 to 6 inches thick of single-space case law in a notebook. And that's already in America. And one of those is a particular case that comes out of New Jersey where the trial judge, fortunately he was reversed, but this trial judge ultimately ruled that this husband could, in fact, beat his wife because he was doing so in accordance with Sharia, and therefore there was no mens rea or criminal intent because it was following his own religious dictates and therefore was not punishable. Now, fortunately, that was appealed to a higher court, and it was reversed. But the audacity, the shocking nature that a judge would already implement Sharia law like this is amazing. So it's not far-fetched.
Not far-fetched at all. And consider that 5 of our current 9 sitting United States Supreme Court justices embraced this notion of internationalist law, of looking to international law and applying it to our law, domestic law right here in the United States. That's why states like Oklahoma, 13 other states, in fact, have come out with laws strictly prohibiting the courts in the states from looking at Sharia law and considering Sharia law in court cases and decisions such as this. The Oklahoma case is currently still going through the courts because it was challenged. These laws are labeled anti-Muslim. Clearly, there is a reason for them, and you've just given another example. I've given an example with these Muslim law groups pushing for Sharia in the United States. So there are multiple examples of why these kinds of safeguards need to be put in place.
Well, all the more reason why the conference needs to take place on November 11th. So continue to stay tuned. We'll let you know about how the conference goes, if it does go on November 11th, but it's scheduled for the 11th of November in Nashville. And hopefully that will still go forward. You know, around the country, around the world, we see our foreign policy, particularly under this administration, is not guided by any principle that understands the reality of radical Islam. You know, in Libya, we've knocked out Muammar Gaddafi, but now the chairman of the National Transitional Council, Mustafa Abul Jalil, is the de facto president. And he's already declared that Libyan laws in the future will have Sharia, the Islamic code, as the basic source of the laws in Libya. And polygamy will be one of those things instituted in Libya. In Tunisia, we just had an election, and of course it looks like what we might ultimately have there is some of the worst-case scenarios as well. And the Obama administration and all of the training manuals have now pulled the training manuals to make sure that there is no reference to Islam or Muslims in these training manuals when it talks about training our law enforcement with respect to terrorism. We need to wake up in America regarding the threats of Sharia. They, in fact, are real. I encourage you to order the book, Sharia Threat to America. You can get that at Liberty Counsel by calling 1-800-671-1776. That's 800-671-1776, or go to our website, lc.org, and order it from the online store. That's lc.org. And the book is called Sharia threat to America. It will be an eye-opening book, I can tell you, because it opened my eyes, and I know it will do the same for you.